1 Degree Outside Weather Network. Nice to have you with us, and thank you very much for tuning in to 1 Degree Outside. Look, we've been providing the updates leading up to the storm. Want to give you an update for what's going on during the storm now as well. This has been a downright dangerous storm in southeastern portions of New England, southeastern Massachusetts, including the Cape and the Islands, and then also running across to Rhode Island, southeast Connecticut. That's really the areas that have been hardest hit. And when we say that, if you haven't seen our updates already, we're hearing from our partners across southeastern Mass. We provide private forecasts for a lot of different partners, including first responders, municipalities. Now, this is really the worst storm that they've had over the last 11 years since 2015. And there's a couple of reasons for that. The wind is obviously one of them. Wind has been howling in a lot of spots, and that's been resulting in outages. We now have over 100,000 without power just when you get on the Cape alone. So the numbers continue to rise fairly dramatically. And we'll take a look at that here in just one moment. One of the other things that we're hearing about is because of the weight of the snow. I mean, this is an average consistency snow, but now you're up to 18 inches of it in parts of Rhode Island already, and we've crossed a foot in southeastern Massachusetts. So that weight of the snow is very hard for even the big trucks to push. So what happens is they've lost traction underneath. They're trying to push that weight, and even the big plow trucks are getting stuck. You know it's bad when the plow trucks are stuck. On top of that, we've got a number of wires down, trees down, limbs down, things of that nature. That's leading to the outages, but also blocking travel in a number of spots. So I'm going to show you exactly what's going on where, because not everybody's being impacted the same. Matter of fact, we are going to be under where we thought we'd be on snow when you get into parts of western Massachusetts. Central and southern New Hampshire likely will end up under, although you got more snow to come over the course of the day today. Same thing along the coast of Maine. But we'll take a look at all of that. We're also going to take a look at how things are shaping up in terms of the current view. We'll look at some of the webcams across the area so you can get a feel for that. We are the 1 Degree Outside Weather Network. Many of you may remember me or have seen me before when I was on TV for about 20 some odd years in Boston and New England television, NECN and NBC 10 Boston. And then it was spring of 2024 that I launched out, and I said, you know what, everybody's going digital first. So let's launch this new venture. And Danielle, my wife, Danielle Noyce, who was on as Danielle Niles on WBZ for a number of years, and then on NBC 10 Boston, ACN as well, is right here too. So if you haven't caught our updates before, just know that you can find the 1 Degree Outside app. It's free in the App Store and Google Play. You can find 1degreeoutside.com, which has the website and all of our blog posts. And you can also find us on your smart TV. So if you open up the Smart TV YouTube app that you have and do a search for 1 Degree Outside Network, you'll watch this stream. We're live right now on that 24/7 streaming network. We are New England's first and only weather network, and pretty happy about that. We are a small operation. It's just Danielle and I. And that's it. And so what that means is over the course of this live stream, I'm going to be doing my own directing and switching of videos and sources and all that. You'll absolutely see errors and mistakes, but that's part of a two-person operation. Having said that, we are beholden to nobody. We have no corporate ownership, no investor money, nothing like that. We are supported solely by our members who go to membership.1degreeoutside.com and by our sponsors whose ads you see on the streaming network and in our app and things of that nature. So thank you to all those of you who support us and continue to make this possible. With that, why don't we go ahead and dive in and take a look at what's going on. We're going to start out just with a reminder on where to find the app, and I do that because it is free. It is 5 stars. It is something that we're so proud to offer. So please make sure that you do download it if you haven't yet. We are really happy to be able to provide good quality weather to everybody because we believe that's the way it should be. So again, grab it on the App Store, Google Play, be able to track the radar. You can see all of our updates in there as well. All right, here's what's going on in terms of the highlights. We're in the worst of it right now. The heaviest snow is going to come through late morning. The worst wind will be coming through mid-afternoon. So we're thinking probably about 3 to 4 p.m. for most spots is kind of the end of the worst wind period. So with the worst of the snow wrapping up over the next 3 hours or so, only the worst of it, it's not the snow stops falling. What that means is a lot of the blizzard conditions that would happen in the afternoon are because of blowing and drifting. And that absolutely can be the case. In a blizzard, it doesn't have to be because you have falling snow the entire time. In fact, out in the Great Plains, sometimes they get blizzards without any new snow coming down at all because the blowing and drifting reduces visibility down to near zero. And that's going to be happening for some of us during the afternoon still. The outages then are going to continue. It's amazing to see right now. We've got some of these branches that are just completely bending over, and of course they're giving way in a number of spots. This was exacerbated by the fact that, particularly when you get north of the Mass Turnpike, we had that sloppy snow 2 nights ago, and that still is stuck to the trees. And now you're adding the new snow on top of that. And then, of course, when you get into southeastern Mass and Rhode Island, we didn't have that event 2 nights ago, but we just have a tremendous amount of snow that's a pasting snow that's coming down. It won't be done snowing until we get to this evening, generally around 7 or 8 p.m. It does get lighter in the afternoon, but again, the blowing and drifting kind of fills in what a lot of the crews have worked so hard to clear out. And that blowing and drifting actually continues tonight, even though the wind won't be as strong. Here's the current satellite and radar composite. You can see the storm center. I'm going to show you something else that really is fascinating with that in just a second. But first, we'll start out with just the overview. So the spiral of the storm, you can kind of make it out there going southeast of Nantucket. Again, wait till you see the satellite shot. I'm going to switch to that here in just a second. And there's the snow all the way up and down the I-95 corridor. But notice nothing coming down across the North Country. North Country, New England will get nothing out of this, really. That's the way that goes. But when you get to the coast of Maine, we get to at least some snow thrown in on top of us during the course of the afternoon. The wind has been picking up for more folks as well, and that even goes up into parts of northern New England. Let me take that little kind of a detour and show you the satellite imagery. Oh, I got to pull up the right. I told you there'd be mistakes. I got to pull up the right imagery so you can see it. Here we go. This is going to be really astounding. That is the center of the storm right now. You're looking at satellite imagery as of just moments ago. This is southeast of Nantucket. So we talked about the fact that this would be a bit of a hybrid-like storm, right? Which means that it would have an eye-like feature to it. Boy, did that come to fruition. And that is what, when you get a storm like this, you've got a couple things going on. You technically have a warm air at the core. This isn't warm core like a tropical system. It's not like you've got warm to hot air, right? Obviously. But you do have warmer air at that center of that storm than you do around it. And when you get that, you get an amazing structure. You get an amazing wind structure. And we're going to look at that and analyze that together here in just 1 second and show you what that means in terms of the forecast over the coming hours. So really impressive storm structure to us here. All right, let's get back over to kind of the rundown for you and show you what's happening. And we'll go ahead and progress to our current power outages, because we have seen those numbers coming up rather considerably. They kind of flare up, and then they go back down again. And that's for a number of reasons. Modern technology is really awesome when it comes to the utility companies. And I was saying, we do a podcast called Talking Up a Storm. Danielle and I do that podcast that all of our inside track members and above can find. But nonetheless, we have different guests sometimes. And I was thinking we really should get someone from the utility companies to come on as a guest and talk about some of the amazing technology, because the way it is now, without humans ever getting involved, you can get these outages and you reroute the electricity automatically. The computers do the switching, and sometimes that's why the power will flicker and then come back on again. Well, obviously, when you get in a storm like this, there's no amount of rerouting you can do. If the wires and the transmission lines are taken down, you just need to get them back up again. So that's why you've got now 100,000 customers without power in Barnstable County, 52,000 in Plymouth County. This data is about 10 minutes old, and we've noticed it's been going up pretty quickly. So it wouldn't surprise me if we're now well over that. Notice Rhode Island has been dealt a pretty good blow with regard to outages. And then Essex County now has just jumped up too. And it makes sense, because this is where we're seeing the worst wind and the blizzard conditions is in a lot of eastern areas, right? In terms of what that means for percentage of customers without power in each county, you're talking about now almost 60% of Barnstable County on the Cape without power. About a quarter of Plymouth County is without power. And again, first responders, municipalities that we work with across southeastern Massachusetts saying this is the worst winter storm they've had in over a decade. And it is downright truly dangerous. In the words of one of them, there's things falling everywhere. So keep that in mind. If you still have power and you still have internet, in particularly Southeast Mass, but really anywhere in Eastern New England, Rhode Island, and Eastern Mass, just be ready to lose it. You may lose power, you may lose internet, and it may take a little while to get it back. And that means it may take a few days to get it back in some of these spots. Some of you may be watching us right now. And by the way, if you have friends or family without power, remember, what we've done is digital first, and it really is designed to help folks out in a moment like this. When you lose power and you need an update and you want to find out what's going on next, go to your mobile device, tell your friends and family. If you don't have power, download the 1 Degree Outside weather app, and they'll be able to watch this. We also have our continuous stream that's right linked on the home page of the app, and we keep that going all the time. So we will take the videos and we will make sure that we replay them for folks to be able to see when we're not going live. Here are the wind gusts right now. We are gusting to 72 miles an hour at Nantucket, 70 at Chatham right now, 59 at Hyannis. Again, this is just a snapshot. This is currently Boston gusting to 52, Gloucester gusting 57. We have had higher gusts. We've already gusted up to about, I think, 77 or 79 miles per hour. We can take a look together in a moment and see what some of the top gusts were. But in the interest of getting you the information that you need, right now I'm going to just keep moving with the forecast, and then we can go back and kind of dig into some of what has happened and what we think is going to be happening in terms of the finer details. Predicted wind gusts as we get through the rest of the morning in eastern Massachusetts. Again, right now is pretty much your peak wind going through about mid-afternoon. I know that's a long period, but let me show you why I say that. Right, notice as we get out to about an hour and 15 minutes from now, we may still be gusting over 75 miles per hour on the outer Cape. Keep in mind, somebody will probably gust over 80. And keep in mind that hurricane force would be 74, but in tropical systems, we talk about sustained wind being 74, not gust. In this case, we're talking about gusts. You'll hear some of the dings in the background. Those are updates that are coming in. Of course, we're tied into our forecast partners at all times as well. So you may hear that in the background. Meanwhile, as we go through about early afternoon, you're still gusting to 60 along both Cape Ann and the South Shore out to the Cape. When you get farther inland, notice your gusts are still 45 to 55 heading through 115. But by the time we get to about, let's say, 5 o'clock or so, now we're down to 40 mile per hour gusts through a lot of central New England. That's a lot better. And that means that your amount of damage and new outages will go down considerably once you get past about 3 o'clock in the afternoon for the interior. Even in Boston, we'll start to see that take a step back as we get to about 3 or 4 o'clock. And then when you get on the Cape, it's going to take you a little bit longer. But in terms of the blowing and drifting, that's going to be something that continues. I mean, you got to figure that, okay, you don't have damaging winds anymore, what you're looking at right here at 8 p.m., but you still are going to have at least what'll be enough to blow and drift that snow around. And that means the crews, God bless them, are going to be working all through the course of the night. The wind has expanded into central New England as well. We're talking about gusts on the order of about 30 to 50 miles an hour, depending on where you are. And the forecast on gusts is to continue those pretty much steady state. I don't think we're going to see more of an uptick across central New England. Maybe right at the New Hampshire seacoast we will. Same thing for the coast of southern Maine and up through Portland and Casco Bay and the mid-coast of Maine. But for a lot of central New England, you're kind of at your peak now. And as we get to about 1 or 2 in the afternoon, you've passed it. So then as we get to the evening again, blowing and drifting, but you don't have as much snow across portions of central New Hampshire, for example, as we do the farther south that you go. Wind gusts now have already been picking up at the Maine coastline. Bar Harbor is gusting to 43. Rockland, Maine is gusting to 40 miles per hour. And we do expect to find those gusts going up over 50 by the time we get into the afternoon. And that's going to be probably not quite to the Maine Turnpike, but you gust over 40 to the Maine Turnpike. Again, probably not enough snow and too light consistency to be worried about multiple power outages in Maine or in central New Hampshire points northward. But nonetheless, at least you know you're going to be dealing with some of that blowing going on as well. Of course, when you get this kind of snow, the definition of a blizzard is near zero visibility, and essentially in science of meteorology, that means a quarter-mile visibility or less, with frequent gusts over 35 miles per hour for 3 consecutive hours. No break can happen in that, at least not more than just a few minutes, for both visibility and for wind. So notice the visibility is at a quarter mile now across almost all of southern New England. This is our highest accumulating time of snow, but it's also blowing. You're down to 1/8 of a mile visibility at Pawtucket, at Taunton, at Norwood, at Marshfield. So that's near zero. Plymouth right now is reporting a mile, which is interesting because Provincetown and Chatham have just done the same. That does constitute a break in blizzard conditions, but for some of these folks, you've already achieved the blizzard conditions anyway. When you come down at Nantucket, we've got a half-mile visibility as we start to see the snow breaking up just a little bit. And that visibility's gone back down to the Pioneer Valley. You're not getting as much snow as we thought you would, but you're still getting snow, and still the roads are certainly going to be tough for you. And we'll take a look at that with the webcams here in just a minute. There you go, quarter-mile visibility now through the Queen City of Manchester and running up to Rochester, and then 10 miles visibility at Laconia. You break out of it. You break into the drier air. Temperatures now are sliding into the 20s. We had started out right around the melting point. The reason that was important is because there was really heavy, wet, pasty snow right at the coastline and inside of I-95. Now that the temperature has dropped to 27 at Boston and Norwood, you're getting a little bit lighter consistency to that snow. That's a good thing. It means it's not going to stick to the lines and to the trees as much as it has. Of course, again, as I mentioned, you've still got a lot of weight that's on there from what has already come down, and you are still adding snow to it, right? Well, when you get to southeastern Massachusetts, no such luck. It is still 32 at Plymouth and Marshfield. We're doing the same thing onto the Cape, down to New Bedford at 30, Taunton at 30, Attleboro is right there as well. You'll drop to the 20s, but it's going to take you till about 3 o'clock this afternoon. And here's that colder air that is coming in from the north. It was amazing to watch it come in the last 24 to 30 hours or so on basically a backdoor cold front. It snuck in from the northeast, which, by the way, is why the snow took a little while during the overnight to fill in eastern New England. Well, it certainly did fill in, though, didn't it? We have right here a number of reports that are on here. There was actually just a big data dump that happened right before I went up with you, where a lot of the reports that came into the spotter network all populated at once, and that's why you're seeing a whole bunch of wind reports. Some of them are more significant ones, like, for example, here you go in Duxbury with a 65-mile-per-hour wind gust, right? But other ones that got kind of data dumped are lower. You've got a 28-mile-per-hour gust at Walpole, etc. We can zoom in a little bit and take a closer look together, though, and we can look at some of the ones that are, for example, on the Outer Cape. Wellfleet, 77 miles per hour that was observed already. Again, you get the mixed in ones, 32, that don't really stand out, all right? 70 mile per hour gust in Orleans. So considerable wind, 72 miles per hour just off of Sandwich. Here we go with 72 miles per hour at Scussett Beach. You come up to Cape Ann, 64 miles per hour when you get out by the Dog Bar Breakwater at Gloucester. So we've been seeing the wind verifying not only up and down the coast, but as we looked at a few moments ago, it's been able to kind of punch inland to some extent as well. I can show you a little bit more about what's going on with some of the banding of snow that we've been seeing, because essentially what we're looking at with the banding is when you get the deeper blues that show up in here, that's where you're talking about some of your heavy snow rates that have been on the order of about 1 to 2 inch per hour snow. And that's what we're going through right now. I know it's a little bit annoying to see those storm reports. I don't think I can actually turn them off. It was right before I came up that data dump came out. But nonetheless, you can see for yourself where those deeper blues are, even across Amherst, where you really haven't had a ton of snow, certainly not compared to southeastern portions of Massachusetts. You still have some of those heavier kind of bursts of snow that are still working through right now, reducing your visibility to a 1.5 mile at times. And we're still doing that in Connecticut right now also. Notice the snow still feeding up from the south, coming across Long Island and Long Island Sound. Here it is out toward the Capital District of New York. And then again, once you start getting north of southern Vermont, once you start getting north of southern New Hampshire, southern Maine, a lot of that stuff not making it to the ground yet. Here's the analysis for you on wind gusts. All right. So again, we look together at the really well-developed core of the storm that we have here. Well, if you actually look on the north side of that storm, those pinks that you see that are out there are pretty impressive gusts. 89 mile per hour gust sitting just east of Nantucket right now. And just barely, if I zoom in a little bit more, we can go just barely north and east of the island. And you've got an 82 mile per hour gust just off the Cape Cod National Seashore. You've got a 72 mile per hour gust. So you get the idea. There's a lot of wind still out there, and our winds are blowing out of the north-northeast. The storm is just ready soon to make its closest pass to us. If we zoom out again, you can see it's due south of Nantucket. So within the next hour and 15, it's going to make its closest pass. That's why we say we may tickle 80 miles per hour from, let's say, Chatham's Outer Harbor, running down to Nantucket, perhaps to the National Seashore, over the course of about the next 1 to 2 hours or so. I would say that would be your best window in order to do that. And then, of course, your winds as you go inland are still significant with the snow, but not nearly as strong. This all creates a wind chill. It's funny, this storm, if you know, when we were telling you ahead of time, the temperature will be near freezing, drop to the 20s, doesn't sound at its face like it should be that cold. But for anybody working out there in this, and that includes all those line crews trying to get the power back on here, it's hard to get a bucket truck up when you get the wind blowing the way it's been blowing. And on top of that, it's awfully cold for them. It's single digits to about 15 degrees, depending on where you are for the wind chill. This has all stirred the waves up. We had minor coastal flooding in most spots this morning. We have moderate coastal flood potential here still, again, with the afternoon high tide at Martha's Vineyard in Nantucket. pocket. The coastal flood advisories and warning have been dropped across western Long Island Sound for those of you that are watching us from Connecticut. But the eastern-facing coastline of not only southern New England, but up through the New Hampshire seacoast, the coastal flood warnings in effect, and then running up through the southern coast of Maine at Old Orchard, it's in effect for you as well. And this is not going to be a substantial coastal flood event. It's interesting for the storm being as strong as it is, and it is creating up to a 4.5-foot storm surge, but that surge, thankfully, is hitting at low tide. Basically, it's hitting right now. So by the time we get back to high tide, you'll still have about a 3 or 3.5-foot surge, but it should only be enough for minor coastal flooding, with the exceptions, again, of probably Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket, and perhaps the south coast of the Cape in some of the vulnerable pockets. In terms of snow timing, you say, when can I get out there and clean up the snow? That's one of the big questions we always get. And so the answer to that is, look, it depends on what you want to do in terms of how you want to feel and when you want to do it, right? If you go out there now, you're going to have snow stinging you in the face the entire time. But if you wait till later, you might have an awful lot of snow that you're going to have to clean up. But in terms of when it's going to start letting up, I think the rates will come down somewhat appreciably as we get past about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. If you say, well, I got a nice big plow or a snow blower that's huge and I can just wait till the thing's over. Okay, in that case, you're probably going to wait till about 7 o'clock or so. You can see the back edge coming through 495, closer to 8 or 9 o'clock when you get to the coastline, and even a little bit later than that, more like 10 or 10:30 tonight when you come onto the Cape, where you're probably not going to wait that long to clear it. I always think that the best thing, if you have the time and the availability, is to do it during the storm at some point so you can get back out there. Just be careful right now with the limbs falling, right? If you're going to be out there, just play it safe. Snow rate as we head to midday. I told you we're in the heaviest snow right now. By midday, it's interesting. The light blue that you see is inch per hour snow. So notice that at the 495 belt, you're kind of already transitioning out of inch per hour snow by the time we get to 11:30. So, one of the things that we do here in house when we're making a forecast is we come up with our most likely. We also say, what's the least likely amount of snow you're going to get? And what's the worst case that you're going to get? A lot of these areas near 495 and outside 495 are going to be right up against that least amount of snow likely, so probably going to end up with somewhere near a foot by the time all is said and done. And then the farther north and west you go, even lesser amounts, and you'll be shy of the forecast in some parts of southern New Hampshire, I would imagine. We'll see. I've learned not to count things out until it's over. And then same thing, don't feel good about it until it's over either. Welcome to the world of meteorology. And as we get to about 1:15 this afternoon, notice you're still snowing 1.5 inches per hour all across the South Shore. That's part of the concern here, and that's why it continues to be a dangerous storm into the afternoon, because you've already had so much. You're going to add even more to it. So the power outage problems compound, the travel headaches compound. Once you get past 7 o'clock, you're down below 1/2 inch per hour snow, and it really is light stuff that kicks out once we get to again, about 8 or 9. So how much snow is left to fall? This is a little bit tricky for us here, because what we're doing is because we're doing additional snow and that changes every hour, we're using some of our most trusted modeling guidance that's available. So the only reason I say that's tricky is because with the update cycles, right? So it updates every hour, but you're going to be just a little bit behind when you look at these maps. But the idea is still, do you have probably another 8 to go across the purple area? Probably somewhere around another 7 or 8, I would say. The farther north and west you go, you can see it's significantly less, right? It's probably only another couple when you get into the Pioneer Valley, which is why I say some of you will fall shy. Then the farther north you go, you can see that really sharp, amazing cutoff when you get around places like Rutland, Vermont, or the Lakes region of New Hampshire. When you come up the coast of Maine, we're able to throw some moisture in off the ocean, but as you start getting north of the Maine Turnpike, that becomes less and less the case for us here. And then up in northern Maine, it depends on where you are, but when you get west of, let's say the Crown around Holton and Presque Isle and Caribou, you get significantly less. A lot of folks have been asking about the next storm that's going to be coming. Look, it doesn't look that bad. This is on Wednesday. Notice there's a mix in southern New England. It could be a little messy. We're thinking probably a coating to 1 inch in southern New England, and maybe more like a couple when you come across northern New England. So not overly concerned about that. One of the things that I've been saying the last couple of days, and Danielle's been saying the last couple of days, is just be careful about how much stock you put in forecasts behind these huge storms. I think the Thursday, Friday one is a great example, right? We're focused on Thursday night. when you get these big storms, they really do reshape the jet stream. And that means that a lot of times the guidance, you need to get a good handle on what this storm has done to the jet stream before you can pretend to have a good handle on what it's going to do with the next one. So the trend on this one has been a little bit farther to the south. It may bring us some accumulating snow on Thursday night. We'll see exactly where things go with that. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it. One of the things that we do, I've got more analysis for you that I can share in just a moment. But one of the things that we do here is we like to make this interactive. So you've heard a lot of me talking right now. I do like to be able to see what you have to say and what you offer in chat. So there is a chat. If you're watching on social media, you can just enter it into the comments and I will see it pop up. If you're at our live stream page at onedegreeoutside.live, there's a separate chat that shows up there. If you're watching on your television, it's a little bit harder. Some of you might be able to work that, but it's too hard to explain. So either on your computer at onedegreeoutside.live, or again, if you're watching on social media, if you're watching in our app right now, there is a chat that shows up down beneath the video, but it may be a little bit kind of funky for you to work. So I will take a look at the chat and see if there's anything I've overlooked before we get into some of the more kind of the nitty-gritty analysis, which is interesting. We're all looking at the webcams and see how things are looking on the roadways here in just a second. Let's see. So if you do a lot of traveling, had big plans for a travel vacation, says Judy, in early February. After listening, cut them short. Travel would have been horrible. Yes, you're going to go from Maine to Myrtle. Yes. So travel is continuing to be impacted, obviously, with all these storms, right? Again and again. We are to the time of year now, though, Judy and everybody else who's thinking about doing some road trips, that at least during the day, when you don't have a storm like this, during the day, the sun angle now is as strong as it would be in mid-October. So it actually does a really good job working on treated roadways, working on warming up the pavement. You'll see in the coming days, when we come out of this thing, how quickly it's going to improve. I mean, you got to move all this snow. So that's step one. But once we get the snow moved and you scrape down a little bit of pavement, that'll really expand pretty considerably over the course of the next couple of days. Power out in Falmouth. Wind is rocking my house right now, says Bonnie. Yeah, Bonnie, that's going on for a lot of folks right now along the coastline. Hang in there, and it's going to be a little while before you get that power back on, obviously. Still have power in Tallinn, Connecticut, says Gretchen, but not in Eastham. Yeah, that makes sense. We've got a lot of reports of power out now on the Cape. My dad, Charles, says wind is still steady and strong in Haverhill. All right, thank you. Weymouth holding up fine. Pelham, New Hampshire, very snowy and windy. Royalston, Mass, about 8 inches. Not much of a storm out here in the boonies of Mass. Yeah, you ended up not with that much in the way of snow, and you get the wind, and that's about that for you, right? You do have power in Dartmouth, says Terry. I'm glad to hear that. I bet the whole town doesn't, but I'm glad you do. Wenham, Massachusetts, in Essex County, northeastern Mass, is without power right now. Medway's got it, on the other hand. It's good to hear you guys with these reports. It really does help us out. Howling in Bayview, Gloucester. Oh, funny you say that. Let me see. Do I have this loaded up? Yeah. You guys want to see the live cam out of Gloucester? All right, here we go. Ready? There it is. There's the live cam. Yep, that's the view in Gloucester right now, and I bet you could attest to that too. Yeah, that's Todd will say, yeah, that's what it looks like right now. So it's been coming down sideways and sticking to everything all over the place there. But let's see, Middleborough is horrible, says Brenda. Brenda, thank you very much for the update on that. Tell us when it'll be over. Hopefully you got that from the video and what we just did, right, with the maps and the timing. Hopefully you got that by now, but I can run through it again in a little bit. Fitchburg, hard to figure out what we're going to end up with. Cindy, I agree, and I'm the guy who's supposed to know what you're going to end up with, right? But we think you're probably going to end up with somewhere close to a foot by the time all is said and done in Fitchburg. Now, admittedly, you go just down Route 2 a ways, you get out toward Athol and Orange, it's going to be considerably less, and even less so out by Greenfield. It's a pretty good drop that's going to be happening the farther west on Route 2 you go. John says, been interesting here in Barrington, New Hampshire, quarter-mile visibility, 3 hours, but only about 2.5 inches. Small flakes, not accumulating well. John, do you know we find this a lot when you get these wind-swept storms, because what happens is it actually fractures the snow crystals inside the cloud as they come down. So one of the things, if you watch our streaming network, you've probably seen my dendrites video that I did. I got really excited when we had dendrite snow crystals coming down one day. Those are the big ones that kind of stick together, and those accumulate really effectively. When you get real strong winds like this, that tends to stir things up and fracture the snow crystals. So they oftentimes don't accumulate as quickly. It's one of the things I thought of in the middle of the night when I wasn't sleeping, wondering how much snow we were going to end up with. And I was thinking, you know what? Sometimes we get those fractured flakes that can cause a slow accumulation. Wind's absolutely insane in Gloucester. Feels like my windows are going to blow out, says Kevin. Hang in there. Thank you for letting us know. 12 inches in Hanson, Mass at 8, probably another 4 since then. So Hanson, folks, is down south of Boston, now up to about 16, says Beehive 12. Thank you for the info on that. Appreciate it. Someone saw me years ago on an online weather group and has followed since. Thank you. I appreciate that. May not have had blizzard conditions, what people think of when they think of a blizzard. Catherine, I agree with you entirely. It's one of the big things that we tried to convey going into this is that, look, whether you meet the scientific definition or not, this is as close to a blizzard as you come for a lot of us, right? And this is the worst storm that we've seen since 2015 for the vast majority of us in eastern portions of Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and southeast Connecticut. Karen, very interesting. Karen says, in Acton, some parts of the walkway are clear, not in others. Screens have snow all over them like they've become privacy screens. Well, enjoy the privacy while you have it, Karen. Actually, it's funny. We texted our neighbors at one point and said, hey, we can't see your house. Enjoy the privacy. Because it was just coming down so much. Christine says, Mendon has power, tons of drifting, wind, and of course, snow. Christine, thank you for the update there. Sunrise reveals a textbook common shape Maurice. Yeah, CJ, that's right. We were looking at that on the satellite shot. Really amazing stuff, right? Live cam in Gloucester looks like your windows in Everett. Okay, so Everett's in a similar boat. Outage number on the Cape seems to be low. Some locations without power not showing up on the outage maps. I'm sure you're right. There's always a delay in the reporting with power outage numbers. That makes a lot of sense. Is it hitting the classic lat lawn position? It's going to be very close. We'll have to go back and reanalyze. It's probably just southeast of it, which is why your heaviest snow is displaced just south of Boston. That lat lawn is usually for a good Boston snowstorm that you hear about. John, good to have you rediscovering me, and I'm so glad that you did. Make sure you spread the word. Would appreciate that at 1 degree outside. And get the app if you haven't done that yet. It's free. It's 5 stars. I think you'll love it. Montague, just next to Greenfield, 5 inches here, 35-mile-per-hour gusts and shadowing. Brock, yeah, absolutely. And I have to say that the guidance did a pretty good job on predicting shadowing north of the Pioneer Valley. And then I'll be curious to see what we end up with around Westfield, Springfield, because we're getting shadowed there too. It's been filling in spurts, but nonetheless, we've been getting shadowed there as well. Cushnet says Michael has 18 inches and trees down everywhere. I believe it. Let's go ahead and take a look together at what some more of the views are looking like around the area here. We'll swing over to one of the maps that we have in-house just to give you a better feel, and this is going to help us out with regard to webcams. So why don't we start out in southeastern Mass and see at least what webcams we can find, because some of them are not going to be working. This one here is pointed straight down when you get around Taunton, so that's not going to do much good for us. Let's go out to the coast. Yep, pointed straight down again. And some of this is very intentional, because if the DOT, which has control over these, can point them straight down, then they don't look like this. This one, not pointed straight down and completely covered and caked in with snow. Here we go. Same thing here in Bourne, completely covered and caked in. Can we find anything? Yes, here we go. Look at that. This is at the Cape Cod Canal, the Mass Maritime. Look at the trees. Look at the snow blowing sideways. That's the live view right now at the Cape Cod Canal. Oof, that is a blizzard if you ever seen one there, right? Oh my goodness. Let's keep coming down onto the Cape and see if any of these cams are still up. Here we go, West Barnstable Station. So snow coming down and, of course, everything blanketed. Come over to Harwichport, offline. Not surprised, right? When you lose power in a bunch of spots, you're not going to be able to keep those cams up. This one is up in Eastham, but it's completely caked. Let's see. Do we got anything down to the south and west? We'll go to Falmouth. Anything got to show up here? It's trying. No, nothing there. And again, it makes sense. You're going to lose this stuff. There we go. Eel Pond is still up right now. When you get down along the Marine Lab, look at that. That's a classic New England scene, isn't it? That is New England winter right there. Let's come on to Martha's Vineyard, see if we got anything that's still up. We do. Oh, look at this, Vineyard Haven. Oh, what a quintessential New England blizzard scene down on Martha's Vineyard. Wow, let's go out to Edgartown. Is that one still up? That'd be great if so out at the lighthouse. It's thinking that one may not be anymore. I think we may. I'll give it another second. I think we lost that one because they're worth it when they load. They're worth it. But yeah, when you get all these power outages, it's pretty hard to keep them going. What do we got in Marshfield's down right now? Hanover. Hanover's completely caked. That's a great little view of downtown Hanover, but not doing much for you right now. There you go. All right, this helps tell a story a little bit, doesn't it? That's Route 3 right now, Pembroke. Where is Route 3? You see the sign, you don't see the road, right? Well, that's what your state highways are looking like. So you can imagine what your back roads are looking like, right? You don't have to imagine. We'll find some. We'll take a look together at some here in just a minute. Here we go. This is I-95. Again, just complete kind of tundra that's out there on 95 right now. Mass Turnpike, snowed in and iced in. There you go. Tundra when you get out in Southborough along the pike. Let's come up the North Shore and see what we've got going on here. We already looked at Gloucester. Ipswich is down. Beverly, rocking and rolling. Look at that camera shaking at the Jubilee Yacht Club in Beverly, Massachusetts. Visibility, would you say that's down below a quarter mile? I would. Blizzard conditions right now in Beverly, Massachusetts. Wow, come down through Revere. Let's see, we got our cams up? Yeah, we do. This is in Chelsea. Again, this is completely coded right now. One of the nice things, looking at Route 1 and all these cams is that at least everybody stayed off the roads. Folks got the message and said, yeah, it's not worth going out there. So that's a very good thing. Ann says, I'm in Hanson. My husband's plowing Route 3 as we speak. Duxbury to Rockland, 18 plus on the ground right now. I believe it, Ann. I believe it. Kathy asks about Merrimack Valley predictions. Kathy, you're probably going to end up around a foot by the time all is said and done, I would imagine. Let's see, Merrimack Valley. How are we looking out there on Interstate 495 in Andover? Not looking like anything you'd want to be a part of, right? Now, if you got to travel in this stuff, if it's emergency travel or what have you, you can do it. You got to leave about 2 to 3 times your normal time, and of course, you got to be careful for all the plow convoys out there. So, I certainly wouldn't recommend it. But if you got to get out there because of work schedules, or emergency travel, there's somebody doing it right now in Tewksbury. It can be done. But boy, you got to take it slow and easy out there. Chelmsford right now. Look at that. They're able to get down to a little bit of pavement here with some of the treatment that's going on. It's slushy, it's sloppy, but you can at least see it a little bit right now in Chelmsford in the overpass, which is that's the beauty of treatment. And again, this October strength sun that we've got going on right now. Let's get right into downtown Chelmsford and see how things are looking right downtown. We'll see if we can load up things at Center Common. These roads have been mostly snow covered in Chelmsford and so many other towns over the course of the day today. This one looks like it's going to be slow to load for us here. But you get the idea anyway. You got a number of spots where you filled in. What about the rest of New England, you say, right? Sure, you've been watching and tuning in from out in western Massachusetts. I said I'd be curious to see what Westfield's looking like. Let's see if we can find any cameras that are still up and going. Here we go. Again, not pleasant in West Springfield right now on I-91, but at least you can see some of the lanes. It's better than it is in eastern New England right now. Chester's down. Who else we got? Are we up in Northampton? Yeah, we're up in Northampton, but we're totally caked in. We come up I-91 right now. There we go. Let's come up I-91 out of Hatfield. And, right into Hatfield. There we go. And, yep, all right. So is it winter conditions? Yes. Is it as bad as it is in eastern areas? No. Come up toward Greenfield, where one of you just chimed in from, and you've got, again, winter conditions, but it's not terrible compared to eastern areas anyway. And then, as I mentioned, once you start going up into New Hampshire, things get a little bit better for us here. Can I get this to not be highlighted? There we go. They get a little bit better, but not in Concord. You got to go all the way up toward Laconia. There you go. Let me shift the view north a little bit. That's it. Now you're in Laconia, and now you got black roads. So you got to get up to about the Lakes region in New Hampshire in order to break into the black roads. When you get around Old Orchard Beach in Maine, it's coming down. It's kind of a pretty snow that's coming down in Old Orchard right now. Hey, hi there, Danielle. How you doing? Let me switch over here.
I just heard from Cape Radio, all the lines are down. Everything, I can't even call into radio. All the stations just went down.
Oh, so we provide forecasts for 3 Cape Cod radio stations, including Cool 102, which a number of you might know about. News Talk Radio on the Cape as well. So you can't call in. They're still broadcasting, but they can't communicate?
They can't communicate. They're partially broadcasting, but they may come down. Wow. So that was the producer just calling me via the cell to tell me. He said it's like crazy down there.
It is.
My sister in Kingston just sent a picture of a branch through someone's windshield. It just missed a person, apparently.
Oh my gosh.
80% of the Cape is without power. WPC just said that dropped
WPC Weather Prediction Center out of Camp Springs, Maryland.
That the pressure dropped 41 millibars in 24 hours.
Wow.
So almost a double bomb.
Almost a double bomb if there were such a thing. That's remarkable, Danielle. Thank you for the update.
All right.
Wow. Holy cow. That's that's sobering, isn't it? What's going on in the Cape right now? That's incredible. We were just coming up the coast of Maine and noticed things are still pretty much fine when you get up the coast of Maine. So that's where we're at there. Let's see, other stuff that I wanted to kind of show you and give you an overview for here. Some of your pictures that are coming in. We always tell you, send the pictures in via the app. So let's get over to, whoops, wrong one. Let's get over to it. And you can see this was out of Dudley, Massachusetts. Ken, thanks for sending it in. See how the snow is stuck to all the windows in Dudley? That's what it looks like from the inside. That's pretty amazing, Ken. Thanks for sharing, and encourage all of you to share the view that you have through the Send to Us tab of our app. It comes right into us. Actually, I can show you. It comes right into a spreadsheet that we have set up here, so we can open it in real time and be able to see what's going on. But nonetheless, that's it's a pretty remarkable shot there. I do want to check one of the other chats, because remember I said we got a couple of different chats that are going on. So let's see on the other chat what we have here. Yeah, okay, there's Danielle chiming in about the 41 millibar drop. She told us about what are the chances going to be cleared up by morning? Are we in for day 2 of school closures? I'm in Westboro. So Elizabeth, what I've learned, and I've learned this by working with a number of different municipalities, organizations, Danielle and I have learned that, essentially every town is a little bit different, and it has to do with largely the percentage of walking students you have versus busing or driving students. So I don't honestly know in Westboro what your percentage of walking students is, but if it's impossible or hard to get the sidewalks cleared, and there's a large number of walkers, you find this in a lot of cities especially, right? Then you're going to have longer, more multiple delay school closures than in communities, believe it or not, that are a little bit more suburban or rural, where most of the kids either take the bus or are driven in, because the roads are going to improve long before the sidewalks ever would, and you can't have the kids walking in the middle of the street in order to get to school. So that's the honest answer, which I know is kind of a non-answer, but it's the honest answer, I think, as to where we land. I would imagine with the amount of snow you're getting in Westboro, which is not as epic as it is in southeastern Mass, that there's a chance that they could be back tomorrow. But again, it's going to depend on staffing of the town crew, and again, that percentage of walkers. So I'm sorry that it's not a better answer, but hopefully that actually answers the question for a lot of you who might have a similar question from your town. How is visibility measured, human or automated? What about at night? Thanks. So there was a time back until the early 2000s or right around 2000 when it was all humans, human observers that would take the weather observations, that would measure the visibility and report it. Now it is almost all automated. When you run into some of the larger airports like Logan, there is still a human that modifies the report. So the automation creates it and the human makes sure it's right before it goes out. They can add things in. So that's why sometimes out in Tornado Alley, you'll have a report of a tornado added in if they can see one on the horizon from, let's say, an Air Force base or something like that. But other than that, it's automation. And so the way that works is essentially, you've got laser and a visibility landmark, and however far it can make it through is what you get on visibility. That laser also, you've got one that goes up into the sky that actually can sense how low to the ground the cloud is. And then finally, the precipitation type observation, snow, sleet, freezing rain, etc. That's really kind of neat. There's this little essentially piece of metal that's kind of electrified to a small extent, and it vibrates back and forth. And that vibration changes depending on what kind of precipitation's on it. You can imagine if you have freezing rain, then it's going to have a big clump of ice that starts to develop, or even a little bit. So it actually tries to sense how its vibration has changed, and that can help to determine what kind of precipitation it is. This has, going to all automation since 2000, wreaked havoc on the climate record. It really has, because in a storm like this, any snowstorm, you almost always under measure the amount of liquid that actually fell from the storm. Enter the Skywarn Spotter Network, which we are so happy to be partnered with the Skywarn Spotter Network. And so this is a network of weather observers from all across the nation, but here in New England, a very strong network that actually takes the measurements of snow, and many of them actually melt down that snow to figure out what the water content was. The reason that's important isn't just for the climate record. It's also really important when it comes to things like spring flooding. And I noticed somebody asked in the chat here about spring flooding. And so the answer to that is the snow that we got earlier in the season was very low water content. So that's why actually we still are running a drought, and the drought got worse over the winter, even though it was snowing. First of all, some of that wasn't melting into the water table. But secondly, there just wasn't that much water content in it anyway. Now you're getting some more kind of juicy storms, a little bit more water content. This one here, in southeastern Mass, you're going to end up with over 2 inches of water content in this storm. And that's why it's so heavy and so hard to move around. Linda says we got about a foot in Halifax, still coming down strong. Do you think the storm will make the top 10 intense winter storms? Top 10 of all time when you come to snow amounts in Halifax? Probably. Top 10, at least on record. I would think so. Now, official records like that are more kept for the city of Boston, Worcester, places that have been keeping a record for a long time. But I would think that for Halifax, at least, as far as the kind of record history goes, you're going to be up there. In terms of the snow amount, I'm not sure about when you put everything together. I mean, it's we've had some pretty horrible wind events, obviously, right? But quite the sting jet, yeah, says CJ. Yup, you've got, so basically on the backside of a storm, you develop this small little corridor of very intense wind and sometimes wind and snow or wind and rain, depending on the setup that can develop. So that's always something that you can see on the backside of a very powerful storm. Kennebunk, Maine, snowing like crazy, says Grace. Wind blowing, roads not good. Yeah, southern Maine has been difficult. When you get up mid-coast, not bad yet, but it's coming in at mid-coast. And then when you get up north of the Turnpike, there'll be less in the way of issues there. 2.5 inches in Conway. Matthew, I'm assuming that's Conway, Massachusetts, or yeah, because Conway, New Hampshire should have nothing at all. Okay, so those of you who've just joined in, one thing I'd like to do is take you back to the map so you can get an idea of where we're at. Let's update where things stand in terms of wind gusts and in terms of what we're looking at for current wind gusts. And let's update the forecast on timing, both for wind and snow. So if you've tuned in and you missed it at the beginning, perhaps you tuned in a little bit later on and you missed it, let's go ahead and get you a full rundown so you can see exactly what's going on. A reminder right off the bat that you can grab our app if you haven't already, if you're just discovering us. Please make sure you do. It's totally free and it's 5 stars. Folks are loving it. It's on the App Store and Google Play. Just search the number 1 degree outside weather. All right. So with that, what we'll do is we'll dive in and take a look together at, first of all, the headlines and what I'm expecting to come up over the course of the next, let's say, couple of hours. All right. So we have the worst of the snow that's going on right now. The heaviest is through late morning. And you know what I'm realizing here is I'm going to go ahead and start a recording here, because I'll probably end up putting this onto our streaming network so that we can come down. We do have our private forecast partners that we take care of as well, and I want to make sure to provide an update for them. So why don't we go ahead and I'll start the recording, and we'll begin something that we can do kind of an overview for you guys watching it live, but can also hopefully go back up on the stream as well. So we're in the worst of our snow here over the course of the late morning into the early afternoon. The heaviest snow will be coming down through late morning, but the worst wind lasting us into the middle afternoon. The outages continue to compound. They've been going up quickly. We'll look at how many outages in just a minute. We've had blowing and drifting snow that's been covering up roadways rather rapidly as soon as they're cleared out. And this has been an ongoing problem for our crews that have been out there. It's been making travel continued treacherous, dangerous, and truly in southeastern New England, including southeastern Mass to Rhode Island, life-threatening for us because so many things are down. You've got limbs down, wires down. It is a complete disaster zone in portions of southeastern Massachusetts and Rhode Island. That is not exaggeration. That is what we're hearing from our municipality partners who are across southeastern Massachusetts. And so they, of course, are continuing to urge folks not to go out. If you have not lost power yet, I'm going to show you the power outages. I want you to be ready to lose it in eastern New England. If that means that, particularly in southeastern Mass, if you're one of the lucky ones who still has power, you may want to put a little bit of water in the tub if you have a private well, because if you lose power, you may lose the ability to get water, and it could last you for a few days here. The snow's not totally done until we get into the evening in eastern New England. We'll look at the timing here in a second, and the blowing and drifting does continue all the way into the night tonight. Here is the very well-defined storm center just sitting south and east of Nantucket. You can see that swirl in the atmosphere that shows up in all the snow that's been pinwheeling on the north and west side of the storm. This storm, as we heard from Danielle just a few moments ago, now has become not only a bomb, but then some. You look for the barometric pressure to drop on the order of 24 millibars in 24 hours. Millibars is a measure of pressure. Well, it not only did that, but it dropped 41 millibars over the course of the last 24 hours, and that is rather incredible. When you look at the satellite imagery, you can see why a tremendously well-developed storm circulation south of Nantucket making its closest pass to us here in the late morning, and that's why the wind is getting worse as it comes on by. Once it goes by, the wind will shift to blow out of the northwest, but that storm core with an eye-like feature is a bit of a hybrid system. That doesn't mean that it's tropical, but it does mean that it has a warm center to it relative to the rest of the air around it. So pretty remarkable setup with what's going on just off of our New England coastline with this blizzard. Okay, let's continue to roll and show you the power outages here. And right now I could certainly back up the fact that Cape Cod is leading the way. These numbers continue to climb and quickly. Now, I would guess that we are over 120,000 just in Barnstable County alone, and I would guess we probably have crossed 60,000 in Plymouth County. Bristol County and much of Rhode Island is right there with you as well, hit hard. Notice that Essex County has been on the rise. Much of eastern Massachusetts has been getting hit with the wind and the snow, and even if you don't have as much snow in Essex County, it's still been enough to knock about 5% of folks without power. Notice that 67% of the Cape now without power, which is why I say this will take days in some spots to get back on. I always have to be careful because I don't want to give the impression that everyone is going to take multiple days, because some come on, of course, much faster than others. But you should be in that mindset, particularly if you're in a little bit more rural area. These are current wind gusts. This is not a prediction. This is what's going on right now. We're gusting at 72 miles per hour at Plymouth, 76 at Provincetown, 74 at Chatham, 72 at Nantucket, 61 at Gloucester. Now, keep in mind, notice Worcester to Webster is still gusting over 50 miles per hour. Same thing in eastern Connecticut along 395. So this has been a substantial area that's been covered by significant wind. And this is why we've been looking at what has been so many compounded issues of blowing and drifting in addition to power outages that have been going on. In terms of the wind forecast, we are pretty much at our peak right now. We will likely tickle 80 if we haven't already across some of the Cape Cod National Seashore and the Outer Cape. I think that once we start getting to about 1 or 2 in the afternoon, we begin to see that wind speed come down, but it's still gusting to nearly 70 on the Outer Cape. Even by 4:45 this afternoon, you're gusting over 40 in a lot of eastern New England. We think that 40-mile-an-hour threshold gets crossed probably around 4 or 5 p.m. And the reason that I mention that 40-mile-per-hour threshold in particular is because usually your amount of new damage is going to come down considerably once you've gone below 40 miles an hour. Just about everybody has by 7 or 8 o'clock, although on the Outer Cape, it may take even a little bit longer than that. And it does stay windy through the overnight, worth mentioning, because beyond power outages, it's the issue with blowing and drifting back into what's already been cleared out that will continue all the way into the overnight. And that means these road crews, God bless them, are going to stay at it deep into the night. In central New England, the gusts have been expanding up the Massachusetts and now New Hampshire seacoast. Notice Sanford, Maine, gusting to about 45 miles per hour. Not everybody gusting equally. We think that you're probably about where you're going to max out for a lot of central and southern New Hampshire. So if it hasn't been that bad for you yet, it probably isn't going to be. The exception or difference to that would be along the Maine coast. Notice Portland, Maine is going to be gusting upwards of 50 miles an hour during the middle to late afternoon. That would continue up the Maine coast. And again, you haven't had as much snow in central and northern portions of New England, but what you do have will be blowing around. The wind is starting to gust over 40 miles per hour at the coast of Maine now as well, and the expectation is right at the Route 1 corridor and then right along the coastline. You probably do gust over 50, even through mid-coast down east as we head through the late afternoon and early evening hours, and then that continues to move on. Again, you'll get some blowing and drifting, but blowing and drifting of a half a foot of snow at the Maine coastline rather than blowing and drifting of 2 feet or 2 to 3 feet of snow that we have in parts of southeast New England. Visibility is the key component to a blizzard. It is not that you have to have heavy snow falling. It's that you have to have heavy snow either falling or blowing and drifting to the point that it reduces visibility to a quarter mile or less. and that winds are gusting over 35 miles per hour consecutively for 3 hours. If there is a break of 10 or 20 minutes, technically that doesn't meet the scientific definition of a blizzard, but you can see a lot of visibilities down around a quarter to an eighth of a mile. This is your whiteout stuff that's coming down right now. That is the case into southern New Hampshire, and then once you get north of Concord, poof. Laconia's got 10-mile visibility. Lebanon, Springfield, Vermont, 10-mile visibility. And you just get too much into the dry air. You don't get very much snow. I'll show you that in just a second. Temperatures have been dropping. Boston was 27 just an hour ago. We've lost 3 more. Norwood's down 2. We are still a heavy, wet, pasting snow at 32 degrees for the South Shore, Plymouth County, Bristol County beginning to cool a little bit. That's going to change the consistency and make it a little bit lighter. But the damage literally has been done with the heavy wet snow that has been coming down on top of us. The farther north you go, the more into the cold air that you have. And again, that's cold and dry air, which is why really this storm is a no-show across a lot of northern New England. Here's the radar. You're looking at the deeper blue, indicating what are the heavier kind of elements of snow coming down. Obviously, the big focus there has been in southeastern Mass. We found these bands of heavier snow that have been reaching up into the rest of eastern Mass. Although at 495, you're starting to see a break in it. We're seeing a little bit of a heavier band up by Gardner and coming into western Mass along the I-91 corridor, and it gets lighter in between. All those white dots, by the way, this is just a big data dump that happened right before I had come up with this video, and that's why you're seeing everything everywhere. Some of those are gusts to 80 miles an hour or near 80, 75 when you get along the coastline. Some of them are gusts to like 17 miles an hour inland, and a lot of them are snow reports. So if you can excuse the white dots, just understand that that's where the Skywarn Spotter Network has been doing their job and reporting in a lot of information to the weather community so that we can share it with you. We have a great partnership with the Skywarn Network. We thank every member of Skywarn and the ham radio operators who keep all this information flowing in. You don't see a whole lot of reports yet when you get up along the coast of Maine, right? And that's because we're still waiting on the snow to kind of nudge in. This is an analysis of the wind gusts, and certainly you can see the strong wind both north and south of that center that we looked at on satellite. It's even more impressive if I zoom in a little bit more. What I can do is I can actually analyze some of the spots that stand out. 88 mile per hour winds, 86 mile per hour winds. These are gusts. 84 just east of Nantucket, just off the Cape Cod National Seashore, 79 miles an hour. And that's why I say that some of us are most certainly seeing gusts to 80 miles per hour at the immediate exposed coastal locales. And this is going to be the worst period of wind right now. It will stay pretty harsh all the way through about 3 p.m. as we looked at together, and then at least begin to back off a little bit more after that. So, all this wind obviously is having an impact with regard to blowing and drifting, etc. But the other part of this is that we're talking about a wind chill that now is in the single digits. So with that falling temperature in Boston, it feels like 5. And even through southeastern Mass, where it's been that, quote, milder snow at 32, it feels like 15 all the way down to the Cape. So it is very cold out there. So for the crews that are out there, including the bucket trucks for the utilities, can't really get up until we start to see the wind die down. But just hats off to the men and women who are out there doing this work, and our first responders who are out there, because this is a cold storm, even if it doesn't look like that on the thermometer. So that makes a big difference, and it certainly has a big impact on the body. That's even been the case when you get around portions of western Massachusetts. You've had that wind chill factor that's been running about 14 degrees at Springfield. And then in northern New England, we've been into the colder, drier air, right? But at the same time, it certainly has had an impact for us as well. Seas have built now 13 to 16 feet. When you get just offshore, we think we'll go 20 to 25 just off of the coastline. And so that, of course, leads to some of our coastal concerns. The expectation here on what we're doing is minor coastal flooding as we head through the course of our afternoon high tide. We don't think this is going to be a big deal for many, except Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket, where we will find moderate coastal flooding again, and that will be a bigger issue for us. The high tide for most folks is in the middle to late afternoon, generally around about 3:50 or so. Again, where the moderate coastal flooding is happening, a little bit bigger deal because some chunks of ice from the frozen bays can get carried onto coastal roadways and need to be cleared. Again, for most, not the case when you get off of the islands. Here's the predicted radar going through the afternoon. Notice that we continue to see a bit of a decrease in the intensity. The heaviest snow band will be found across southeastern Mass, but it does not quit for you. And even farther to the north and west, when is it going to stop is one of the biggest questions we get. And the answer to that is not until about 5 p.m. in parts of central New England, 5 or 6, and in eastern New England, not till probably about 7 to 9, and in southeastern Massachusetts, maybe not till about 10 or 11 by the time all is said and done. You can see it does at least dry out tonight, but remember, you've got the blowing and drifting. Snowfall rates, the deep blues, you can see your 2-inch per hour snow still going at noon. As we head to the afternoon, the white is where you've got 1/2 inch per hour rate. The light blue is inch per hour rate. Inch per hour rates are still across the Metro West, Boston, Revere, running all the way up to Cape Ann through 2 o'clock this afternoon. Then once we get past about 3, those rates start to peel back. And then finally, we make some progress in terms of getting this stuff to kind of wind down a bit. And again, it's not really until this evening that you see it totally tapering. In terms of additional snow, what we do this deep into the game is basically, we're trying to update you with hourly data. So this is based on computer forecast model data, and it's not going to be keeping up as well as it necessarily should, but it's doing okay, which is to say that in that purple area, if you line it up with the legend at the top, that's 8 to 12. I don't think we have another 12 to go in these spots of southeastern Mass. I do think that we have probably another 8 to 12 to go in these spots, though. When you get along the north shore of Mass, you actually are getting a pretty heavy snow band with near zero visibility. So to think about another 8 certainly would make sense for you. And then the farther north and west you go, I would do the exact same thing. I would take the lower end of the range on a lot of this. Why do we shift into this? Because look, in terms of your planning, and particularly for a lot of the crews that are out there, it does become an idea of, aside from the blowing and drifting, how much more do we have to get through? So we will take stock of the totals by the time all is said and done, but I can certainly tell you in full disclosure that when you get around someplace like Charlestown or Boscawen, you're ending up with less than we initially had thought. We cut back amounts last evening, but it was, going into this, we thought the moisture would spread farther north. Look at the tremendously sharp cutoff that's going to be happening, right? When you get around Laconia, basically get missed out of this one entirely. Lake Winnipesaukee essentially missed. Snowmobile country essentially missed. But you've got another chance. Look at this on Wednesday. Folks have been a little bit worried about this. I wouldn't worry about this significantly. I think it's probably a coating to an inch event with a mixture in southern New England. Northern New England may get a couple to a few inches out of this on Wednesday because you get a little bit colder air. But there's a couple of things that I always say when you get behind these big, big storms, which is that let the guidance get a really good handle on. Remember, this storm we knew was going to be a bomb. We knew it was going to be more than that, but it's gone even beyond what was expected. That's going to reconfigure the jet stream to some extent. So we really shouldn't get too up in arms one way or the other. It's going to miss. It's going to hit for later in the week. We know that the Wednesday one is not a real big deal with mixed showers and some snow that'll be fairly light. But the Thursday night time frame with that one, let's see what shakes out with that. Let's let the guidance get a pretty good handle on what's happening with this storm going by. And you say, as a meteorologist, can you figure it out without that guidance? And the answer is no. As a meteorologist, it's something that even for us, we have to wait and see just how big this storm has gotten and just how it's affected the overall flow. So that's how things look in terms of what's coming up over the course of the next couple of days. You've got the rundown now also in terms of what I think is coming up over the course of the next several hours. Danielle and I are going to stay on top of this. We will continue to provide updates either via live stream or just via our video updates. Best way to get those updates is always via our app, the 1 Degree Outside weather app. You find that in the App Store and Google Play. Do a search for the number 1 Degree Outside, and you'll be able to find it there. It is free. It is 5 stars. Spread the word. Let folks all across, not only New England, it'll work actually across the world, but it's especially good anywhere in the nation. I think you'll find good performance out of that app. And the big thing for us is it's our way to communicate with you. So this morning, when we got word from our municipal partners that things were really a disaster across southeastern Mass, right away we issued a push notification to that targeted area, letting folks know just how bad it was so they wouldn't go out there. So again, we'll continue to keep you posted certainly here. We're going to go ahead and kind of switch off of the live stream so we can keep updating some of our private forecast clients that we have as well. We want to make sure we take good care of them, although we know that you, our partners, have been watching this live stream, and we hope this has been helpful for you too in some of your planning about what's coming up and where things are headed next. So with that, we're going to continue and get back to our recorded videos on our stream. For those who've been watching on social media, continue to stay connected with us, and we will keep you posted. Send us your pictures and reports. It helps us tell the story. Use the Send to Us tab on our app. That goes not only right to us, but it does go directly to the Skywarn Spotter Network, and that also gets relayed to the National Weather Service. So by sharing that with us in the Send to Us tab, you are sharing it with all of our partners and with the meteorological community at large. Stay safe. Don't underestimate this one. I know that the snow is kind of coming in fits and starts in some areas away from the coast, but this has been a real doozy for you. So take it easy. We will keep you posted. Thank you so much for your support and for watching.